Welcome back to the official podcast of the 2024 International Fuel Ethanol Workshop and Expo, or FEW. I'm your host, Danielle Piekarski, and I am joined today by Shrikant Rathi, Executive Director at PRAJ Americas Incorporated. Shrikant will be presenting twice at FEW, once in Track 3 at 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday, June 12th, and his second presentation, which we will be discussing today, is a part of a panel titled The Transformative Potential of Sustainable Aviation Fuel Markets on Existing Renewable and Fossil-Based Production Sites. This panel will take place at 10:30 a.m. on Monday, June 10th. Shrikant's presentation will focus specifically on enhancing sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, production. Shrikant, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Danielle. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, audience from whichever part of the world you are and listening this podcast from there. So thank you, Danielle, for having me here. I'm really happy to be part of this podcast.
Of course. So why don't we just start things off by having you tell the audience a bit about yourself and PRAJ Americas Incorporated.
Yeah. So hello, everyone. I'm Shrikant. I'm a regional head and executive director for PRAJ Industries. A little bit about my company. PRAJ Industries Limited is a globally leading company which is headquartered in Pune, India, which specializes in technology and engineering of bio-based technologies for producing biofuels and biochemicals. PRAJ is pioneer in delivering innovative solutions for the bioenergy sector with a significant focus on the production of the biofuel, such as ethanol, biodiesel, or biojet fuel, which plays a crucial role in sustainable development of energy security worldwide. Our expertise spans over 3 decades, and the company has successfully deployed over 1,000 project across more than 106 countries, enhancing the capabilities of the bioenergy sector. Our offerings are diversified into 5 key areas, which is bioethanol plants, brewery plants, water and wastewater treatment plants, critical process equipments and skids, and high purity system. So this diversification showcases our ability to innovate and adapt in response to the evolving needs of the global energy market. So thank you, Daniel.
Yes, thank you. So to get into your presentation, can you start by highlighting the importance of reducing carbon intensity scores and positioning ethanol as a viable feedstock for sustainable aviation fuel production?
Okay. So if you look at the aviation industry, while it is essential for the global connectivity, it is also a notable contributor to a global carbon emissions, which accounts to almost 2 to 3% of the global total. So as we push towards reducing these emissions, SAF, or sustainable aviation fuels, emerges as a critical solution. However, the challenge does not lie just creating these fuels, but also in producing them at a scale and in economical viable way. This is where our existing ethanol plants come into the play. So currently, many ethanol plants operates primarily on the feedstocks like corn, which is in the United States. But if you look at globally, there are 2 feedstocks. So whether it is a grain feedstocks and the sugarcane-based feedstocks. So these ethanol facilities are robust. They are equipped with extensive infrastructure and technological setups. The strategic question we pose today is that how can these plants be part of our journey towards a more sustainable aviation future? So it becomes predominantly very, very important for these facilities to reduce overall CI score of the ethanol production process so that we can deliver, they can become an important part of the supply feedstock for producing sustainable aviation fuel. That's where the topic of my presentation is making ethanol facilities reduce their overall CI score so that this ethanol produced from this facility can qualify for the SAF production.
All right. So, can you tell us about the decarbonization strategies that you'll cover in your presentation and some of the advantages or limitations of these approaches compared to other methods?
Yeah. So there are various strategies so globally there is a lot of work already happening on the decarbonization of the ethanol productions step. So there are variety of those strategies which are being discussed. So first is, I think, carbon sequestration, CCU, or carbon sequestration and utilization. So where we capture carbon dioxide emissions from the ethanol production, preventing them from entering into atmosphere, and then just sequestering, thereby reducing the carbon emission. So that is, I will say, one of the most easiest way out, but that cannot be applicable to all the ethanol plants. The strategy which I'm discussing in my presentation is mainly onto the focuses onto the various aspects of the ethanol production process, and that's what we called it as a process optimization and in ethanol plant. So there are variety of new technologies being developed so that the carbon footprint or the energy requirements for ethanol production process can be brought down. So one critical approach for this energy reduction or the process optimization or the carbon intensity reduction is integration of this energy saving technologies, these new technologies which are emerging on the horizons within the existing plant operations. So this can include the implementation of advanced heat exchanger systems that reclaim and utilize waste heat from various stages of the production process. So whether it is a liquefaction or whether it is a distillation, dehydration, and evaporation, whatever the waste heat is generated out of these steps can be reclaimed and used back into the process, and thereby it can reduce the overall external energy requirement. Another aspect would be can be upgrading these new pumps, compressors, and other mechanical systems to more efficient models which can consume lesser power and have better operational control. So these are, I will say, incremental innovation or incremental technologies which can be added onto existing ethanol plant to get some incremental benefit. What we are talking completely different over here. So apart from this, whatever the incremental we are doing is that if we can find out a way so that the existing ethanol facilities can be designed and deployed in such a way that they do not need any source of external energy. So what I mean to say here is that for production of ethanol, we should not need any external natural gas or any external electricity for converting any raw feedstock to the ethanol. And that's where we come to the co-product maximization. As all of us know, in US, all the ethanol producers, all the ethanol plant either produce distillers wet grain or DDGS. Okay, so part of this DDGS, so the major component on the DDGS we focus is protein. But apart from protein, whatever the fibrous portion is there, if that can be converted into the gas and that can be effectively integrated into the existing ethanol facilities, it is very much possible that the existing ethanol plant will not require any external source of energy. We did this in 2016 in one of the plant in Southeast Asia, and that plant is running successfully since then on that technology. We want to bring that decarbonization approach to this part of the world, which would effectively help reduce carbon scores of the existing ethanol plant by almost close to 27 to 30 points without carbon sequestration. So which will effectively enable the ethanol to qualify for the sustainable aviation fuel production. There are other strategies like change of feedstock. So predominantly in US, if we talk, we are using corn as a feedstock, but the same ethanol plant can be altered to process, I will say, alternate feedstocks which have a much lower CI score, like very bad quality wheat or sorghum, which is not good for the human consumption. Thereby also can help, it can help us to reduce the CI of the ethanol process. So these are the strategies which I will be elaborating in my presentation in depth with numbers and with case studies, that how it can be implemented in the existing ethanol facilities. There are, of course, while implementing in existing ethanol facilities, there would be other challenges as well, like how much shutdown would be required for implementing or adopting this technology into existing ethanol production facilities, the space constraint, repurposing of the existing equipment. So I will be answering all those questions in my presentation, that how easily these new technologies can be easily adopted on the existing ethanol plants.
Okay, well, you kind of answered my next question, but I noticed that you underscored the importance of enhancing energy efficiency, independence from external sources in ethanol plants, and then those challenges. What are some of the ways that these challenges can be addressed without giving away too much of your presentation?
Yeah. So as I underscored about what can be the potential challenges in implementing these new technologies on the existing ethanol facility, one need to understand that implementing new technology on a greenfield or new project is much simpler than implementing it on the existing ethanol plant. And the challenges for the same can be repurposing of the existing equipment, availability of the space for implementing or installing these new equipments, and then the amount of shutdown time required, which would be actually hampering your production. So we have addressed these problems quite effectively. So over the past 10 or 12 years, we have been doing that, implementing newer technologies onto the existing ethanol facilities. And we implemented this more than 25 to 30 projects across the globe. So this has sort of us has given us what we call it as the deployment strategy for modernizing existing ethanol facility. So where we bring in completely different approach for deploying these newer technologies onto the existing ethanol plant. So we will be talking about modularization approach, how we can minimize the downtime, how we can effectively utilize the existing space for the required modifications, what are the different considerations. So I will be dealing in depth about these. So this is one of the this was one of the deployment challenge. The second is the technology challenge. So particularly if we are talking about a biomethanation like technology, so we are working on to what can happen with the digestate, how we can convert it into the manure, and then what we will be doing it during the cold winters. So how we can make the existing ethanol plant a completely energy independent and solve all the challenges. I'll be covering everything in my presentation.
Sounds great. All right. Well, we are coming near the end of our time here, but I do have one more question for you. Considering the increasing demand for sustainable aviation fuel, how do the findings of your research contribute to meeting the aviation industry's sustainability targets while also ensuring that economic viability for ethanol producers?
Yeah, perfect. So one need to understand that, look, we have a, say, grand SAF challenge at hand. So although in the initial phases, many of the projects are coming on the feedstock other than the ethanol, but the aviation industry knows that ultimately the final raw material or the final starting molecule for SAF would be ethanol because of many reasons, which is well known to the industry. So whatever we are doing right now for decarbonizing or making this ethanol to qualify for the SAF production, when we talk about the economic viability, we look at maximum 3 years payback based on whatever we are doing. So this decarbonization strategy not only reduces the greenhouse gas emissions or the CI score of the ethanol, but also reduces the operating cost. So there are also strategies where if a SAP plant is co-located with the ethanol project, and that would make it much more viable. So ultimately, whatever we are presenting, I will be putting up the financial numbers on these technologies, how these can be implemented into existing ethanol plant, and how the 3 years payback is possible. So these are all commercially viable technologies which we are discussing over here, and these are going to be a very crucial for existing ethanol producers to make them sustainable in this grand SAF challenge, and will keep them relevant in the industry.
Well, thank you, Shrikant. Again, today we are joined by Shrikant Rathi of PRAJ Americas Incorporated. I just wanted to thank you again for joining us today. It was great talking with you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me here.
Of course, and I look forward to seeing you at FEW. If our listeners would like to hear more from Shrikant, his panel, The Transformative Potential of Sustainable Aviation Fuel Markets on Existing Renewable and Fossil Fuel-Based Production Sites, will take place at 10:30 a.m. on Monday, June 10th. Thank you to our listeners and FEW attendees. If you are interested in attending the show or learning more about the conference, visit few.bbiconferences.com for more information. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you more on the next International Fuel Ethanol Workshop podcast. Until then.